entrepreneurship as a whole is one of these things where we don't really know what we're doing or how to completely pitch ourselves until we've made that first sale. How do you keep on going when you're trying to still like munch on that first big win where you can finally like take a breath and say like, I did this and now I've got a repeatable process?
So first thing, there's a couple pieces there to unpack. I don't think that entrepreneurship is a profession. I think entrepreneurship is a personality trait, just like being introverted or extroverted. I think you're entrepreneurial, or maybe you're less entrepreneurial. I don't know what the inverse of entrepreneurial is. I don't necessarily want to say corporate. I think that has negative connotations. But if you're entrepreneurial, that can express itself in so many ways. And some of those people build startups and work in tech. Some of those people are musicians or artists or influencers that have media brands or music brands. And one of my best friends, a brother of mine, not by blood, but by everything else but that, is a successful DJ that has traveled the world to perform. He's an entrepreneur. He's running a business. He is the CEO of his brand, of his IP, of his revenue streams, he may have a team around him. It's the same thing. It is quite literally a company. And in some cases has more traction and more revenue than any startup does that raises venture capital. That's not real revenue. It's not even a real business in a lot of cases. And so influencers, I mean, we're here in Miami. We know a lot of those types of people. I believe that they're entrepreneurial. And just because you're entrepreneurial doesn't mean you can't work a job. If you're an early employee at a startup and you're not the founder, you're still probably very entrepreneurial. You want to wear a lot of hats. You want to take a lot of responsibility. You want to set your own schedule. You want new things every day. You're uncomfortable, or you're comfortable with volatility, uncomfortable with pure structure. And so that's something that I certainly can never turn off. Even in my lowest moments where I've been applying for jobs and interviewing for jobs that I knew I didn't want, it, A, and B, even while doing that, after I applied to 50 jobs in a day, I then went back to working on my other stuff that I cared about. Because I work 18 hours a day working on different businesses and different projects and building up my family office, and I am energized at the end of that day because I love what I do and I'm doing it for me. And for me, that's a motivator for me. Just like if you're extroverted, a motivator for you is being around people. And if you're extroverted and you spend a lot of time with people, you feel energized afterward. And if you're introverted and you're motivated by your own kind of internal desires and passions and curiosities, you have that time and that energizes you. And vice versa. If you're entrepreneurial and you're in a structured job, or if you're a structured person in an entrepreneurial role, that will be draining for you. I know many people that are unbelievable employees. And they want that structure. And not having that structure, having to work 14 hours a day is draining for them. Having to not have goals or clear KPIs or some of these things is stressful, is tough. And that volatility, and I work in crypto, like the price is going like this and this is exciting for me. That's action. That's noteworthy. That's opportunity. For a lot of people, that's not comfortable, right? So there's obviously varying degrees of those things, but I think that first off the bat, the personality trait of being an entrepreneur, and I say this a lot to employees that I work with and that join my teams, like, you're an entrepreneur. Even if you're part of the team, even if that means you have somebody that you report to, or even you're working with somebody, that doesn't mean you're not entrepreneurial. That just means you either, haven't been building the vision, or maybe strategy is not your number one role, or, in a lot of cases, your access to capital isn't strong enough to be the founder. A lot of cases, especially early stage companies, the person that's able to raise all the capital usually is the one that has the leverage to decide if they want to be CEO or whatever, right? Especially in early stage businesses, that's how it goes. So just because you're an intern at a startup and you're young and inexperienced, or old and inexperienced, doesn't mean you're not entrepreneurial. So I think that A, that's a motivator for me. B, I very much believe that mentality, mental health is very much like physical health in the sense that you have to actively caress and encourage the right behaviors to happen. And the way I was raised, my mother is a chef. At first, she was a really great home cook for most of her life, and then she went to culinary school and became a chef and worked in a kitchen, and now has a successful healthy foods in eating brand and blog, and she writes for the paper and does a lot of things. She would always say as a kid, your brain is like a pot of soup. And everything that you put into the pot of soup will affect the flavor and the nutrients. And she would always say as kids, as a joke, if you threw a dirty boot into your pot of soup, it's not going to be a very good pot of soup. It'll taste terrible and it's going to be bad for you. And your brain is the same way. If you fill your brain with junk food, it's not going to be helpful and healthy for your brain. And so I really try to hold myself to the highest standards of accountability. I try to take responsibility for everything that I can control. But accountability also means the inverse, which is the things that I can't control, I don't take to heart. I'm faithful. I believe in things that are outside of my control. I'm spiritual. There are things that I cannot control, and I can't worry about those things. They will take care of themselves how they will. I can only focus on the things that I can control. So if I'm stressed right now because my business is not doing well, or I don't have things to do, or I'm not motivated, well, I need to do what I can to put myself in a situation to resolve those things. And worrying about it or stressing about it isn't going to change the reality. The only thing that's going to change it is me either trying something new or staying diligent or removing myself from the situation. Those are my three options. If I don't want to remove myself and I don't want to try something new, I got to keep at it. Or, you pick one of the three. So for me, like really maintaining a mental perspective that takes accountability. And then the second thing is I really try to be positive. And I think that anybody that spends a lot of time with me knows that I love to laugh. I try not to take myself too seriously. I'm pretty competitive in the things that I really care about, but my self-talk to myself, my way I communicate to others, the way that I try to frame everything is to see the best in the situation and to look for those good things and focus on those good things and try to force my brain to just constantly, not to compartmentalize or ignore the realities of life, but find those positive motivators. And so when you apply those few things together, that's how you get to where you are and how you just keep moving forward.
Lots to digest there. I have two sort of reactions that I want to dig into. The first, I'm going to go in reverse chronological. You talked about a positive mindset, and it's an issue that's already covered. Every other podcast about business and positive self-talk has already covered this. So more from a story perspective that is unique to you. Like my story is when I am feeling down, I tell myself, hey, I'm noticing I'm feeling down. And if I can't kick my ass a little bit by going and doing something hard, whether it's a long run, workout at the gym, walk on the beach for just like a long time, getting my dopamine detox in, then I usually stay in that. And sometimes I get slapped in the face, which is beautiful. I had a really nice walk with my dog yesterday. We walked like 2 or 3 miles on the beach. And in that, I like left my phone behind and I was like, oh, I needed this. And so that's usually how I recover privately. And that helps reinforce the good habits as I'm ready to return to them when bad habits have taken over. And then publicly, when someone asks me how I'm doing, I generally respond with, things are great. Because unless you're my very close friend, like it's none of your business how I'm actually doing, because I'm not here to like burden on you with my life story. I think that's something that we do almost like well as guys, like because there is a certain uh, admiration or self-respect that we can have by knowing that we have a process to get out of this, and not every stranger who asks us how we're actually doing like should carry that burden or is responsible for helping us on that journey, right? That's what our support network is for, and that's what our good habits are for. So that's how I generally deal with things. And I'm curious if you can respond in kind, keeping like that positive self-talk and waking up at 4:30. I already know a lot of the things that you can do, but like even tell me about the stuff that I don't know that helps you going when the going gets rough, which is natural.
I love what you said about I love what you said about the process of how you communicate with others. I actually remember a situation where I had an investor. I was with a business partner, and we were out having some drinks. This was somebody that had already invested in one of my businesses, but we were just trying to keep that relationship strong, and we wanted to impress them, and there was potentially future opportunities to work together. And when we were out, we ran into a different person that we had done business with in the past. And that person must have been going through some tough times at the moment. They weren't super jazzed up. They were maybe drinking a lot, so they were, feeling a little bit looser with how they wanted to express themselves. And I remember this was when crypto was really struggling. And, I don't work directly with crypto, but I'm certainly pretty tangential. And in general, tech and venture has got kind of wiped out alongside it for at least 12 months or so. And so I ran into this second investor while we're trying to wine and dine one person. We run into this other person. And they came to me like, Kyle, how are you? And I'm like, I'm great. Things are awesome. I had just fought through maybe the worst year of my life. My mother had been fighting through some aggressive cancer, and thankfully she's stable now, but it was really tough there. We weren't sure if she was going to make it, so dealing with that and being remote from that was tough. And at the same time, the market was down, and I had to face having to lay off employees for the first time and shouldering that burden. So I had a lot going on, but I don't know, in my mind, all of that is temporary. Certainly, my mother's health is not necessarily temporary, and thankfully that she's recovered. But life goes on, certainly with the rest of it. And relative to a lot of people, we're in downtown Miami. I'm healthy, motivated. There's a lot, it could be a lot worse. Even in some of my lowest moments, relatively to the rest of my life, there's so much further that things can go, and so many people that have to fight through so much tougher journeys than I do from an objective perspective. So yeah, my life is great. Like, it obviously stinks in that specific moment. And this investor laid into me, this second client, things aren't great right now, blah, blah, blah. You should be feeling bad. You should be X, Y, and Z. Expecting and being frustrated, almost that I was being facetious in my positivity. When, for me, you have to. I try my best, and of course we all have tough days and things like that. I really try my best to hold myself to that high standard of like, I am really good. As long as I'm happy, healthy, and motivated, those are the three key factors. And if one of those things is missing, then I want to try to identify and address those things as quickly as possible. If I can have those three things, happy, healthy, and motivated, the rest of it comes and goes. In 6 months from now, are the problems today still going to be a problem? In 2 years from now? In 5 years from now? Are they still going to be a problem? Probably not. And trying to keep those things in perspective, compounding the interest of my time, recognizing that like I'll have a family and kids and one day be retired and whatever. Those things are coming in the future. And in those moments, my day-to-day today is not going to matter. I'm stressed. I got to move this weekend. Like, okay, like what? I'm going to let that ruin my day because I'm stressed? Like, what am I going to do? I got to go move. Like, Don't stress about it. Just get the stuff done, and then do what you got to do, and focus on it. So I really try to take a bird's eye view, I think, from some of those perspectives.
And what do you say to an investor who's like, you should be feeling bad?
I mean, the easy answer is feeling bad doesn't make it any better.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I'll tell you what I am. I'm optimistic in the things that I am working on, which if you're an investor in my company, you should be happy that I'm saying that, because me being pessimistic is a bad sign for your capital.
Sure.
You should be happier that I'm happy, right? Like, yeah, it's a tough time right now, but that doesn't, certainly for us, and certainly in that moment, I had no stress about what FTX was going through or what a lot of these crypto companies that were committing fraud. I had kept my morals and ethics, and that's important to me. Certainly I've made plenty of mistakes. I'm the first one to admit that. But selling out or doing something against the moral and ethical codes that I have is not one of them. And as long as I can keep that centered, you know, things that you build are risky, and sometimes they fail. And if the worst thing that happens to me is that we take a big bet on something and it doesn't work, like, well, that stinks. But that's kind of part of the game, is you're supposed to take the big bets, because a lot of them don't work. But the ones that do pay off the rest, and that's just part of the game. Does that mean I have no remorse for the businesses you build? No, but I think that keeping the legality of that is important, and keeping centered on your morals is important. So yeah, I think that's, from my perspective, you know, when you say going on walks on the beach, doing those things is a way for you to help. You know,
we ran together last weekend.
We did. That was fun.
Yeah.
I think that trying to build relationships that are not transactional
Yeah.
is my way of healing. Like, finding cool people, and just like, if there's ways to work together along the way, awesome. You know, you help me out with my apartment. Like, there's great ways that we can work together. But that's not why you build the relationship. That's not why we hang out. It's because I like hanging out with you and spending time with cool people that I care about, that I'm interested, I'm stimulated by. So I get on a 2-hour phone call with friends often. I probably talk on the phone for personal calls 10 to 20 hours a week at random times at night or whenever, just because I like to talk to people and hear their story and hear what they're up to. And so I think that sometimes, especially entrepreneurs, they're so focused on selling, so focused on raising, that every relationship becomes transactional. I think that can really be draining, versus like focusing on cultivating really strong relationships is helpful, especially sometimes when things fail and the deal goes wrong. If you have a strong relationship and foundation, most friends will understand, as long as you weren't misleading, right? And you never promise anything. It's like, look, this is risky, and we're going to try something, and if it works, great. And if it doesn't, we're still going to be friends at the end of the day. And sometimes that's your fault. Sometimes that's the other side's fault. But if you've got strong relationships, you should be able to weather those storms, and maybe even make it stronger by learning from it, and by learning from each other.
So what I'm thinking right now, on the line of moving away from the nature of the transaction, right? I always fall into this like really nice space with you where we always end up talking deals. And it's a thing that you kind of said from the beginning. The first day I met you, you said, I'm a deal maker and I'm here to make deals. And if you're not here to make deals, I'm not here to be your friend. And so it makes sense that we always end up talking about entrepreneurship, investing, raising capital, things like that. I've also seen it be really nice when, after we went on our run and I was talking business with your friend that you brought in, that we were running with, and you completely cut off the pattern of conversation by saying something I'm not sure I should repeat on here. But you're like, okay, let's chill right now. And I can't stress enough the value of just like being able to hang and do, frankly, nothing together.
Sure.
So I really resonate there. And I'm going to challenge us for like the next 10 minutes, whatever, see how it goes. You cannot bring up the word startup, business, raising capital, nothing like that.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
Cool. So here's the next question. You've done all of the deals that make you happy in a financial world. You're always going to be a deal hunter, so I'm not telling you not to go out and make deals. But you have to make a non-traditional deal, like buying a winery, or it doesn't have to be local, is what I'm saying. Or if it is local, the deal that you can make is like buying a salsa studio. And so that's kind of my question to you is, outside of the world of fintech or crypto or any of the worlds that you participate in, what is an interesting deal to you down the line that would be like, hey, this could be fun?
I love freestyle rapping.
Yeah.
I'd totally own a music studio and just create an amazing place for artists to collaborate and be in a safe place that is free from a lot of the pressures of that industry and a lot of the pressures that come from monetizing things. And I'm so inspired by a guy like Rick Rubin, who's just a total vibe, and self-identifies with the fact that he doesn't have a lot of classical or formal music training. He just creates a space in which environments can really create amazing work. And I personally love hip hop, so I certainly don't fit the mold in a lot of ways, at least from an outward look and perspective.
It's because you're white. No,
it's because I'm just too bougie. Nobody wants to hear the bougie guy rap, honestly.
I'm just fucking around.
But I think that would be really fun, and it would be really a cool experience because I love the culture. I love shit talking. I like the rap battle aspect. And so I think that would be really fun.
Who's your first diss track?
I'd love to have like a slam poetry like live stream on Fridays or something.
Yeah.
Where it's just like 8 Mile, like we bring back like the serious in the moment but not serious outside of the arena style of competition. I think there's a lot of like sneak dissing out there, and then you get like it bubbles over, and then there's a rap track or something that like right now Drake released a rap track on Kendrick, and they're all dropping lines on each other, and then Kanye chimes in and whoever. But like I think it'd be really cool, and I play competitive soccer, at least relatively competitive. It's more certainly not that great, but we'd play seriously. And I hate losing. I'm really competitive. I don't crack a smile on the pitch. And I'm angry when things don't go my way, and then the game's over, I get off the pitch, and then they're all my friends, and it's all good, and you leave it on the field. And I think that that's a really healthy dichotomy, especially for me mentally, in terms of like releasing that super competitive energy. And I can feel on weeks where I'm not playing, I can feel that something's missing, and just that part of me. And so I think cultivating an environment like that would be super fun in Miami, where there's just like, we do like, it's like the UFC, somebody's got the belt, and then like everybody's trying to rap against, and we can make a whole show out of it and track wins and losses and let crowds listen in and vote and whatever. Like, I think it'd be really fun. Have celebrity judges. I think that there's totally an amazing creative opportunity, and Miami's the perfect spot for it because there's so much hip hop that happens in, all of Florida. Certainly a lot of South Florida. There's so much success there. And then, Texas is huge for a lot of that stuff these days, and Atlanta, obviously. So there's kind of a lot of cool, differing environments. And I think there's an opportunity to create those safe environments, to be competitive and to talk some shit without necessarily having that trickle over into everyday life.
So now we get curious into something I know nothing about. So this might be a tangent that's going to stick around for a while. My next question is, what is the current landscape of Miami hip hop right now? Who are the major players in it? Are there any freestyle battles that currently happen? How much research have you done into what it would look like to make this happen? Like, walk me through your thought process. Like, let's outline this together, what you would have to do to make that a reality, or join an existing community that might already be doing something like this.
I think I would take the approach of going producers first, because one thing's for sure, Miami is not the biggest hip hop city. It's there's some traction there, and as I said, I think it's naturally like an equidistant place from a lot of different centers.
Yeah.
I'm not the expert on up and coming South Florida rappers, unfortunately, but I do know that there's a ton of DJs and there's a ton of producers that are constantly creating tracks. And I do know that it's a tough game to get your stuff heard and out there. And so many of the producers these days have really kind of become promoters, because since DJs in general is such a commoditized profession here in Miami.
Yeah, it's electronic music though.
Right, but the skill set is the same to make a beat for a hip hop track and an electronic dance music. And I know personally many DJs that do both, and just they cater to their audience in the club, that they're always looking to get their names out there. And whether it's like TikTok, which maybe is banned, but even if it's not, or the club, are the two avenues. If you can kind of build your name as being like one of the producers that people love to come, and you're making tracks that then people are coming on and making music on, I think that that's a cool spot, because I don't know, my gut says that there's more people, that there's a lot of people that are willing to rap that don't have the skill set to produce. And so there's a surplus of producers in general.
Step one, we find a producer. They're probably in the electronic music scene producing. I know a lot about the electronic music scene, and I can confidently say that minimal tech, like breakbeat style, coming back from old school hip hop 90s, like it has reemerged as at least this season's latest vibe that's showing up in the nightclub right now. So I get what you're saying. That's possible. But then my next question is, let's say we have a new breakbeat track by one of these local DJs, and we get 20 of them. So we're good to cover the whole night. We have the beats. Now how do we get the rappers?
All right. So there's a couple ways to do it. Are we bootstrapping, or in our hypothetical, is there a pot? Is there capital that we're working with?
I want it to be as grounded in reality. Like this plan, like one thing I'll offer up already is I am friendly with this girl, Brittany Berger, and she has this place on 70th Street called the Mindful Music Lab. And what she does there is she takes up-and-coming hip-hop artists that already have probably record deals or are signed to a label, and she does all her like chakra white girl magic on them, and they either love it or they hate it. And if they love it and they're respectful of her environment, then she Rick Rubins the fuck out of them, and then they're supposed to make good tracks off that. That's her deal. So that space already exists. I've got a potential venue for you.
Great.
I've got potential rappers for you. That's as grounded as I can offer from my network.
Mm-hmm.
Now what?
Well, look, there's a couple pieces to it. You need a charismatic host. And we know a lot of people on our network, so we would probably run some auditions, reach out to a couple of candidates that we think would be shortlisted, and potentially start exploring outside of our immediate network into kind of our local network and try to find at least one. Ideally, you'd probably have a few just to have backups or have different nights or things like that. You'd start to build consistency. Consistency is everything. Consistency in the content, consistency in the day of the week, or if we do it once a month or whatever like that. We start creating good music and interesting conversations. And it may start in a podcast style of thing where you have the moderator in the middle, you have the couple people, we're talking back and forth, and then it kind of transitions into either give me your best freestyle, give me your best 16 right now, and I got to give you my best 16 and you give me your best 16, and then we go from there. Maybe there's a freestyle, an actual off the dome freestyle portion. The only hard part is that I do know that that's difficult to go literally straight off the dome
Yeah.
and have a compelling piece of music. So that will not only be hard to get super quality content, especially from up and coming artists who may or may not be incredibly talented, but it's also going to be intimidating, I think, to get people to fully buy in. Whereas,
Sure.
freestyles in the rap scene, especially if you go on Sway 45 or whichever radio show that you'd like, a lot of them freestyle with pre-written stuff.
Sure.
And so bring your best stuff and let's just spit some bars, and potentially either we have a theme ahead of time, maybe we don't, maybe there's different competitions. Like, I actually am totally inspired by, I was in Japan in October. This is a funny story. So we were waiting for these like fluffy pancakes that are known in Japan. You may have seen them on social media, but they're like this thick and they're like cloud pancakes, like jiggly. They're really not good, but they're fun to look at. And so we're waiting in line 45 minutes for these pancakes.
Yeah.
In Japan, the restaurants, like there's not many tables. So there's almost always a line everywhere because there's like 6 tables. And so anything that's halfway popular on social media, they're booked all the time because they just don't have a lot of seats. There's a lot of people in Japan. So we're waiting in the line, and it's kind of like a spiral staircase. It's in the downstairs portion. So there's great acoustics in this kind of like corkscrew open stairwell to the outside space. And we started talking. I was there with my sister and we were some friends, and we started talking to people behind us, and they were in Japan for the National Beatbox Championship. Every year there's a beatbox championship.
Yeah, Japan's got some weird sports.
Well, they travel around the world.
Yeah.
And so this girl is from like California, and she was in Japan for the beat. So she beatboxed for us in this stairwell, and it was pretty fun. And we ended up beatboxing against each other, and she whooped me because I don't know what I'm doing. I just kind of was, just doing my thing. And
can you do that for 20 more minutes?
Just straight 20 minutes. That would be like, it'd be a lot of spit on the microphone, I think.
Well, Ryan doesn't know, won't hurt him.
Yeah, I guess so. Long story short, we were at dinner a couple days later. A couple guys are beatboxing at the table next to us, and I'm like, ha! I know why you're here. And they're like, you think so? And I'm like, yeah, the world championship is in Japan. And he's like, yeah, I'm the organizer. We had a couple 100,000 people there. And he was explaining to us, we actually ended up taking the guys out for drinks, and he and his buddies just did 3 or 4 minutes of straight just like beatboxing, where they can do so many sounds. The vocal range is pretty impressive. It sounds like a DJ, and they can do all kinds of horns and sirens and multiple different sounds layered on top of each other at the same time. And they were explaining to us that they do all kinds of 2v2, 3v3. They have, one event where you can use like a recorder to like chop up your sound, so you could do booch to booch to booch, and then you'd record that, and then it would play that a looper, exactly.
Yeah.
And then cut up your thing. So they had all kinds of things, and they have hundreds of thousands. They had over 10 million followers on their socials that people tune in just to watch people beatboxing back and forth against each other. And so I thought that was really fun.
Yeah. I love that it's already popular, because that proves that the concept is viable.
Sure.
One way that we know businesses are successful is when you take one concept that exists somewhere else and you import it to a place that doesn't already have it. So let's pretend we use a model like that. How does one go about franchising like the beatboxing brand that you ran into?
So you need people really passionate about making it work. Like, hosting events, organizing events is a tough job. And going back to our initial conversation about personality traits, it's certainly not my skill set to be hands-on day-to-day organizing events. It's something that even just organizing my own travel plans when I have to fly for work or pleasure and coordinating those things is pretty stressful for me. I'm the type of guy that just wants to buy a last-minute plane ticket, get there, and then like wander around a city and just find fun things to do. And I usually am pretty adequate at that.
So it sounds like you would need a team. So like, who do you think is on your team?
Certainly, I think a super passionate co-founder style of role, somebody that really wants to take ownership over like making the event happen.
Yeah. I'll throw out a name.
Sure.
Shanice.
Sure. She would actually be really good.
Yeah.
Yeah. She hosts awesome Twitter Spaces. She hosts these types of, like, the audio here is the most important part. So figuring out even how to port a live event into the just audio only. People may just want to listen because, again, it's interesting and fun and good to listen to. You may not even need to see the visual if you don't need to. So you need a great organizer, somebody that wants to ingratiate themselves into that culture. And you need a really, I think, attractive and fun personality that has some level of street cred and respect in the industry, like a Drewski or whoever, somebody that like wants to kind of be the face of this thing.
What's that freestyler, Mac?
Is it the white guy?
Yeah.
Not
Mac Miller.
No. I know who you're talking about.
R.I.P.
Yeah, R.I.P. to Mac Miller.
Yeah.
But I know who you're talking about. Again, a good example of somebody that could fit there.
But like going back to the risk that we take as an entrepreneur, it's not a big deal to like send him a DM and be like, hey, are you interested in this concept? But it is a big deal that if we want to get the respect and attention, you would need something to back it up, like capital, resources, and names. So before you would get somebody like a Mac, you'd probably need to figure out a couple other pieces of the puzzle. So what might those be?
You're gonna have to solve the chicken and the egg problem. Why are rappers gonna want to do it, or artists or creatives? You're probably gonna start with people that are lower on the totem pole than your big name rapper. Perhaps we could if we had the right relationships, and I think having one person dedicated to reaching out to everyone local and trying to coordinate those things makes sense.
Yeah.
But again, if we're starting small, it doesn't even need to be a huge production. It's just we start reaching out to really interesting people that are creative writers. And maybe you start it as a slam poetry style of thing where it's like me versus you. And we do it. And it's just funny. Like perhaps there's the comedic angle. It doesn't necessarily have to be the coup de grace, creme de la creme of the rap game. But if we had really fun personalities, if we got Monica Rojas to rap against, I don't know, somebody else in our network. It was Monica versus Jadon in a rap battle. Like I think a lot of people would be interested to see how that went down.
Yeah.
I think that like the Epic Rap Battles of History YouTube series are funny, right?
Yeah,
and like they're
funny.
good raps.
Yeah.
And maybe it's just like a roast, like the roast of whoever.
Of course.
Where a lot of those celebrities don't actually write their jokes. Yeah. They have a comedian partner that helps them write funny jokes.
Yeah.
So perhaps it's me versus you, and then we bring some good rappers to help us tweak and think of funny things to rap, and then we rap at each other. And we have to memorize it. You can't bring in the lyrics, so we have to you still have to rap it. You have to go on a beat. Maybe you know the beat beforehand. Maybe you don't know the beat beforehand. Maybe the rapper that helps you knows the beat beforehand to make sure that it is on beat, but you might not know it. So there's some level of performance that's required by the person. But I think you could start with that. It would be pretty low budget, and it could happen in an environment like this. And you could do it for pretty cheap, and then just focus on the digital distribution, record a season's worth in a month, and then release them weekly, clip them up into clips, post those things on social, and then see how the reception is. And then perhaps after season 1, then season 2, you think about using that season 1 to capture emails, to capture interest, and then you organize an event in an event space, potentially charge tickets, find sponsors. And with those things, we can then have a budget to then be able to explore bringing in some of the more premier talent.
So this goes back to leveraging the resources that we currently have. How do you get to where you're happy?
I like to rap. I want to be in a studio with other people that like to rap. I like the idea of it being people that are not rappers, but I'm not opposed to working with rappers. I think that I had a really unique experience about a year ago to this day, maybe a few weeks over a year. I started a fashion company 3 or 4 years ago. I'm a co-founder. And the CEO of the business is an unbelievable woman. Her name is Johanna Kepler. And she's in the performing arts industry. And that's what I think brought us together, was that I'm such a finance tech guy, venture capitalist. She's on the exact opposite spectrum.
Yeah.
Super creative, super talented, classically trained dancer. And so we're building this fashion company, trying to target somewhere in the middle. I love the advertising marketing strategies of like streetwear culture from like the hip hop scene in the 2010s, mixtape era. I love that era, sampling everything under the sun. And she knows performing artists and their needs, which are also not met. And some of the most talented people that still struggle to make revenue, despite the fact that they're so classically trained, and they operate in a space that has so many billions of donors and nonprofits, and yet it still doesn't quite translate into the talent itself. And she opened my eyes to a lot of these individuals, and I've met so many unbelievable performing artists, including one, Malik Washington. And Malik is such an amazing guy and someone I'm lucky to call a friend. He's an incredibly accomplished, award-winning dancer, super cool, smooth guy, great energy, obviously incredibly talented. He's a choreographer, he's a director, and a dancer. And so he was working with us on a line, and we made a custom line based off of him, and we're working with him, and unfortunately we just couldn't totally figure out how to get sales on the product, but the intentions were there, and it was a fun way to at least kick off the collaboration. And I invited him over to my apartment when he was in Miami, and we hung out and, you know, had a whiskey, and we're just kind of laughing at how our different experiences that boiled down are the same lessons that you learn, but in such varying different contexts. And it came to a point when we went to debate rap, because he's maybe one rapping generation older than I am. So the Jay-Z prime era is his bread and butter. And I'm talking about how, you know, Long Live ASAP by A$AP Rocky and Flatbush Zombies and Joey Badass, and a lot of that era is what I think is the best. And I mentioned that I think that's peak, not only hip hop, but I think it's peak fashion, because that was the first iterations of some of those hype beast movements, which I love. Not only I think the style is kind of cool, maybe it's a little bit cringy now, 15 years later, but like at the time it was innovative. But also I love the sales and marketing and advertising strategy and how that hype culture was so effective at building business. He felt differently, and it was a fun back and forth. And we actually resolved that by freestyling in my apartment.
Yeah.
I have a microphone in my apartment. You know, I freestyle a lot for fun. You know, I'll probably take a beat, I'll loop it from YouTube and rap for 30 or 45 minutes, freestyle straight off my head, and then I'll take that 45 minutes, I'll manually edit it down into probably the best 2 minutes of it realistically. Then I'll re-rap that as one track, I'll transcribe it, then I'll work on the words to polish it, and then I have a decent rap track. And I work so opposite when I make rap music versus, like, for some reason when I was young, and ever since, I never look up the words to a song. So the only way that I would learn a complicated rap song was listening to it on repeat over and over and picking up one new word every time. And sometimes I'll listen to a song 1,000 times, one of my favorites, and sometimes I'll be in the shower and I'm like, oh wait, that's the word that he's been saying the whole time. Because in my mind, I'll rap it, and if I don't know the word, I'll add like I'll add the staccato beat and slowly fill in the words as I get them.
Got it.
And that's my process of learning my favorite songs. It's helped me train keeping the beat. I can keep the rhythm really well because I don't need to know the words to keep the rhythm.
Yeah.
And so I end up working backwards, which is different. And so I'm not a great freestyler by any means, but I'm a confident freestyler because I can at least hold the beat even if I run out of words to say. I often will just kind of keep staccatoing until I can think of the next line, and it makes it fun, and at least it makes it unique. It's my style.
Yeah.
And so Malik and I had such a cool experience where we're two people he's from New York, I'm from the suburbs of Philadelphia. I'm not from Philly, even though I love to say that I'm from the area.
West Philly?
No, about
Born and raised?
northeast suburbs in Doylestown.
Did you spend most of your days on the playground?
Yeah, I'm not going to keep going down that road. But it was a fun experience, I think, for us to have such different backgrounds, both professionally and how we were raised, and our perspectives on even the hip hop itself,
Yeah.
and then to share that moment rapping. And so, I would like to do that more, and be in those types of environments. I do like to talk shit, so I think that that's a fun play on it. But at the end of the day, I think just making really cool music and being around really cool people and cultures is I think the thing that really motivates me. And so to kind of your earlier point, and to a comment that I made about relationships earlier, where my mind went initially when you were asking about this was very non-transactional.
Right.
I wasn't thinking about the best business to make, because I think I was against the thesis here, but also B, because I think the best deal to make is in the line of work that I do right now. So like, I'd rather be all or nothing. Like, if I'm trying to prioritize the best deal, I'm just going to work on the actual best deal.
Right.
And work on, at least in my opinion, and that could change over time, and at least right now, I think that where I'm in is the best for me, at least, not for everyone, but for me. And then the goal is, once I've done that enough, then if I want to pay out of pocket until it can find enough sponsors, and at worst case scenario, I'm having a really great time, or if we figure out how to break even or have a slight surplus to build a cushion or do whatever, like, I just love the idea of being in those types of environments, and if I have to create it for myself, then that's what I want to do. So
yeah. So I think that puts a really nice ribbon on it, and I'll kind of summarize where we're at. There's such an important distinction in life between what's fun and our ideals, and how we want to go about business, and what's profitable. So I'm in real estate, and I know plenty of investors who want a good triple net, and they'll, buy a Chipotle, let's say, but they don't think that Chipotle is the best Mexican restaurant. They just think it's a good 7 cap. So they're going to invest in it anyway. That's called a good deal. Then there's the one step that's a little bit more involved, like a restaurant owner. Now, do you think every restaurant owner thinks that they're competing for a 3-star Michelin restaurant? No. Some of them are just trying to squeeze as much profit from their business as they can, because they're deal makers and they're interested in business and numbers. And it doesn't mean that they don't take pride in their food. It just means that to maximize profit, they need to be worried about the line items, the things that, allow them to take home money at the end of the day to support their families. So that analogy applies to your situation in 2 ways. The first way is the hobby. In order to make something like rap, for you, freestyle rap, a sport where you can feel like you're entering into that soccer field where you're in a creative space with other people, and then leave and then act like it never happened but be creatively fulfilled, you need something that's not a business. Maybe it's something like, I invite some friends over for dinner, some of those friends are freestyle rappers, and we give it a go, because that would be fun. And honestly, if that's the outcome from this podcast, I would love that. Okay? And maybe I'll write a little something too, because I don't know if I'm going to do anything right now. Maybe you can exit our podcast with a little something if you're feeling it. I'm preempting you.
Sure, whatever.
Okay. So the second point is the nature of making this a deal. And I would say, as the host, as the interviewer, I asked the wrong question. When I started, I said, what is the deal that you would make once you were done with the crypto and the fintech stuff? And then your response to that was, well, nothing, because crypto and fintech is the most interesting, always will be the most interesting, so I'm always going to be making deals there. I'm not interested in making deals in anything rap
I think
related.
the point is that I do deals so that I can do things outside of doing deals.
Right.
I may always be doing deals, and I may do them in different spaces.
Right.
But the priority for doing crypto fintech deals today is because if there was a better deal they made somewhere else, I'd probably be working on that.
Exactly. And for me, in luxury real estate, I think that I'm selling homes so that I can funnel all of this media stuff that I'm doing, because I love to make films and I want to be a content creator and I want to engage with friends in these kinds of creative spaces. And if I can make, whatever crazy commission I'm going to make off of a sale while entering these spaces, that's the best way I know how to double dip, right? Otherwise, I could go to any industry.
Right. The dream is to be set so that you do your hobby, and then if your hobby does make money, that's the added bonus,
Right.
as opposed to trying to monetize the thing that you really like to do, because that, I think, at least for me, cages me.
Yeah.
I think, I don't think
When
that's
your passion
unique.
becomes your job, then it's no longer your passion.
Right. So I think that's a very fair.
Yeah. So I'm down to kind of like leave it off there, and I don't know how the audio is going to work if I like play a beat. But do you want to try it? And if it samples well, it samples well?
Sure.
Okay. Cool.
Or you can beatbox.
Yeah. I think I'm going to go with the...
Let's try it.
I don't know where's my phone. All right, I might have to beatbox.
Oh, let's
I don't
go.
have my phone on me, so it's what's here.
All right.
Okay. So I'll give you the subject, which is to reflect on our conversation that we had. Tell the story, like recap for our audience, kind of what we talked about, what you were excited about from this conversation.
Let's hope I'm that good of a rapper. We'll see what we can do.
Yeah. And maybe if you want to throw in like some of your plans that you're looking forward to for this weekend, or just like generally how you're feeling. If you want to throw in some verses you've pre-written, like go for it.
Yeah, no pre-writes. I'm just going to try to spit off the top and see what we can get.
Okay, cool. And this is the official first episode of whatever this podcast is called.
Cue the sound.
Ending with a rap. And here we go.
Yeah. Okay. Listen. Yeah. Spitting bars with Hunter. I don't know what to say. Trying to think of how to keep the business out of the way. Cause we're talking about rap, talking about creativity. Cause I don't really know what to do when I'm making money. Cause I'm stacking that bread. Trying to do what I do so I get it out my head. Cause we are out here talking about how we trying to build the life that we always dreamt about. So we got the Hunter on the beat boxing. Like that Japanese girl, she was straight flexing. He's out here doing a pretty good job, cause we're in the acapella, cause we do it like that. Cause yeah, on my weekend, I'm gonna reflect on this conversation. This made me think a lot about how I view life, how I view the business that I strive for. On the night core, yeah. Cause we sometimes just gotta keep the flow, and then we just gotta keep the blow up. Cause we going and we blowing and we saying what we doing. Cause we know what we saying. We know how we living. Shout out to Office Logic, Ryan, keep it in here. We got a great spot, Office Logic, downtown Miami 305, where is that? Yeah, don't get hit. Don't let the man get hot, cause he's off the top. Shout out to Hunter, on the drop. Yeah. Thank you.
My guy, thank you so much for doing this. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Heck yeah.
Very fun.
Till next time, guys.
Peace.